Hello, I'm Del Ballou, and I've been working on some videos about reclaiming either old, forgotten, or unfinished paintings. And the one I'm going to work on today, um, as you can see, is already framed and has at some point hung on my walls, but it's been mostly stored away in the closet because I wasn't happy with the trees in the background. They were just a little bit too overpowering, but I'm basically a tree hugger anyway, so that's not a big issue for me. But in order to cause those trees to rescind into the background a little bit more, I'm using a glazing technique. And I had already put the glaze on this side of the painting when I tried to do something to the camera and it just went off. So, but hopefully you'll be able to see from the other half of the painting. Now, when I'm finished with the glazing, I can always go back and change something about the colors because this is the medium that I'm using is liquid, and this is with oil paint. So when it dries, I can just go back and work over the top of it. But so far as I can tell right now, um, this is working for me. And if I need to make my glazing a little bit darker or change the color, I can do that at any point. Now, when you're mixing a glaze, you just use usually about 1 part oil paint and then 9 parts of the liquid. But that's something that I suspect changes with each glazing that you do, and depending on what you want it to do for you. Now, I'm planning to leave these trees pretty much the way they are. I'm mainly working on the green. So I have my liquid mixed up, and I'm using some Viridian green and a little Payne's gray for my mixture. Now, what I like about the liquid, and I've picked up some other paint, which is really okay. What I like about the liquid is that it also adds a little sheen to the painting. Oil paint is typically more glossy than acrylics, for example. But even so, some of the colors dry a little bit flatter if you don't use medium of some kind. I can see I was running out of the color in my mixture, so I wasn't really getting anywhere with it. I still may need a little bit more. But glazing is kind of scary, so that's one reason you have to do it very thin. Like, for example, the few strokes I gave just a second ago was a little too much, covered up too much of the green. But oil paint is fairly forgivable. And by that I mean if you make a mistake, you can always go back and correct it. And if after all is said and done, I have darkened my leaves too much, all I have to do is put more paint on them. but I will wait until the painting dries, which won't be too long, a couple of hours maybe. This area in here was a little bit too thick with paint. So I'm just taking some of that off. And at this point I could actually take it off with turpentine. Just cleaned it off completely. And I think I may do that. What I'm doing now is just moving that liquid around and removing it to some extent at the same time. This painting was done from a photograph that I took on one of my many ventures to the Great Smoky Mountains. My home away from home. And another thing I'm going to do, I don't really like the shape inside those rocks, although that's exactly what they look like. But I think I'm going to change those somewhat while I have this painting on my easel. And I've been meaning to do that anyway. So let me get back on the other side. And we have a little mixture over here of some darker colors. And I'm just going to use that same glazing technique with the inside of this rock. And I'm wiping the paint off of my brush with a paper towel. Because I want this to be pretty translucent. do the same thing over here. Not altogether sure I like that tone, so I'll just add a little bit more blue back into it and diminish that alizarin crimson look. Rocks fascinate me. So in addition to being a tree hugger, I'm a rock lover. When I was living in Pennsylvania, near Punxsutawney, I went up to Cook Forest one day and sat in front of a huge rock that had a tree growing out of it and around it, and it was really quite interesting. And that sort of set me on a little journey to find out where rocks come from. And I used to go on the highway to the University of Georgia to Athens, and there were fields that had huge boulders right out in the middle of them, and farmers had farmed around them. And I used to wonder who would put a boulder in the middle of a field like that. And that just tells you how little I know about science and those sorts of things. But I looked it up, and lo and behold, they come from under the earth. They get pushed up from the lower parts of the earth. And so that's the way you learn things. You just have to be curious. Never have liked this rock much. So it looks kind of odd. Let me see what I can do to change it. I still have a good bit of medium in my brush. Just want to change the shape. It looks almost like a chase lounge that somebody's left out in the water. Might be a little bit more satisfactory. The nice thing about painting rocks Well, very much like trees, except I think trees are a little more regular than rocks. They have a little bit more of a system of branches and leaves. But the thing about rocks is that no two are really the same. And I guess that's because of their origin. They came from those plates pushing against one another under the earth. Yeah, I like those trees a lot better. Yep. And except for maybe touching up a tree limb or two, I think I'm going to call this one done. And I've noticed I haven't signed it yet, so I'll get that done as well. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Bye-bye.